the incredible, the fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, come one and come all to a film you've never seen before. But remember, folks, no refunds.
Hello and welcome to No Refunds, the podcast where we watch bad movies so you don't have to. A Cold North production. I'm your host, Ben Reynolds, and this week we watched Justin Lin's 2013 film, Fast and Furious 6. Joining me this time, we have the tenacious Tim Miller.
Why, hello there.
And Patrick the Law Morris.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Check out everything we have going on over at coldnorthpro.com, and if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review wherever you found our podcast.
What a great website.
And now, Fast and Furious 6.
This is what 100 million buys, huh? It wasn't that hard to find you, Toretto.
Wasn't hiding.
Last week, a team of highly coordinated drivers took down an entire military convoy.
You know Rio was my last job.
Oh, I know you didn't do it. But you're gonna help me take down the team that did.
And why is that, Hobbs?
Been chasing this crew across 12 countries. This was taken a week ago.
It's impossible.
I need your help, Dom. I need your team.
Why do I smell baby oil?
You keep running your pie hole, you're gonna smell an ass kicking.
You got the best crew in the world standing right in front of you. Give them a reason to stay.
Our target's Owen Shaw, former Spec Ops soldier. For years, they've been running jobs in Europe, but it's our most recent job that graduated them to a whole new level. The loss of life is unthinkable. I'm offering you a chance to make your family whole again.
You get us close to Letty and we'll get you Shaw. And you give us full pardons all the way around.
I can't promise you that.
That's the deal. Take it or leave it. Ride or die.
We're not dealing with cops, with drug dealers. I've never seen this before.
It's a code you live by, makes you predictable. In our line of work, predictable means vulnerable. I can reach out and break you whenever I want.
You believe in ghosts?
Maybe the Letty we once knew is gone.
You don't turn your back on family. Even when they do.
Life in the fast lane. The speed of life and I can't slow down. You gotta hold it in the gas. Got the finish line so I can't stop.
Guys, they got a tank.
Damn.
We talking vehicular warfare.
This is not what we do.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Google plot synopsis, where each week we all take a crack writing it, the Google plot synopsis. Then we read our plot synopsises and Google's, and Tim and Pat or whoever are the guests try to guess which one's actually from Google.
I think that, by the way, last week we established we are all better at this than Google.
Yeah, pretty much.
Debatably.
I think that was a shot at you, Pat.
I think mine was great.
All right. So let's start this week with this one. Dom Toretto is one day approached by Luke Hobbs, a DSS agent who needs Toretto's help in taking down a group of criminals led by a man named Shaw who are stealing military tech. A ghost from the past, someone who Toretto thought was gone, rears their head as things start to get personal. Toretto must now get his family back together for one last job as they try to take down Shaw, the only way they know how, with the fastest cars to ever hit the streets.
Wow. Okay.
All right. That's the first one. Here comes the next one. Agent Hobbs convinces Brian and Dom to bring their crew back together to stop Shaw, a man he's been unable to stop himself. Dom is confronted by someone he thought was dead who's part of Shaw's gang. Can the crew stop Shaw before it's too late? All right. Then we've got... Since Dom and Brian's heist in Rio left them and their crew very rich people, they've scattered across the globe. However, they must still live as fugitives, unable to return to their families. Meanwhile, Agent Hobbs has been tracking a gang of lethally skilled mercenary drivers, whose second in command is someone Dom knows. Unable to take them down himself, Hobbs asks Dom and his crew for help in exchange for pardons for everyone. And finally, a ghost from their past resurfaces, bringing Dominic Toretto and Brian O'Connor to retirement to pursue international criminal Owen Shaw across Europe. After reassembling the team, Dom and Brian look to right the wrongs and After reassembling the team, Dom and Brian look to right the wrongs of the past and clear their records good, but more importantly, reunite their family. With freedom and family on the Fast Gang looks to take one final ride against their most powerful foe yet.
Okay.
All right.
I want to see if I can just do a clean sweep. So tell me if I'm wrong. 1 was Tim, 2 was Google, 3 was you, 4 was me.
You were wrong on some of those.
Fuck.
Tim, go ahead and go with what you've got. Or which one do you think was Google?
I think number 3 was Google.
All right, so Tim got it right. Pat guessed that mine was Google. Fuck yeah!
So 1 was Tim, 2 was you, 3 was Google, 4 was me.
Yeah.
I still think 4 was the
You
best.
were close.
I'm just glad that I made Pat think that I was Google.
Yeah, that's a win right there.
I'm not sure. Hold up. Let's not say that's a win, because we've given Google some pretty terrible grades in the past.
Yeah, but that's so. Each week I am trying to literally write mine as I'm trying to fool you, make you think that mine is the Google. So I'm trying to be like pretty vague.
Okay, so the second one that I thought was Google, I thought there's no way that any of us wrote something that bad.
No, I literally spent like a lot of time today writing that.
Well, you fooled me.
Not lie.
You
like I had much better versions too, and I was no, that's too much, too good.
Yeah, mine was fucking boss. Mine was
the
great.
one thing that I will say Google is they make run-on sentences with crazy fucking like they use like semicolons and shit like that. And I was worried that you were gonna note that somebody was gonna be like, "Oh, fuck, this one uses semicolons and shit to keep it within the 3 sentences," because there were pauses in that one that made it almost sound like 4 sentences.
Oh God.
Google cheating as always.
Those bastards. All right. Well, so yeah, it's funny because Pat sent me the one his this morning, and when I was trying to write mine, I hadn't read literally the first sentence of yours because I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And then I was like, "Oh shit, this is his thing," and then I couldn't get using the phrase "ghost" out of my head. For trying to describe the
Letty.
Describe Letty essentially, and then I was like, well, I'll just go with someone with something very Dom is confronted by someone who he thought was dead.
Well, Tim used Ghost as well, right? Ghost from the
Yeah, I
past.
did.
Yeah. Oh man.
I mean, it is a good phrase to describe someone who you thought might have been dead.
No,
Yeah.
totally. And that's it just my brain just kept going there, and I was like, no, I need to not use that because that sounds the same as Pat's.
So can we? So now that we've watched this movie, I want to just make it a rule on the podcast that we never have to watch a movie with Michelle Rodriguez trying to pretend to be a badass ever again.
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like she is a bad.
I am not a fan of Michelle Rodriguez. And oh my god. Oh god. Okay.
She like literally spent choreography for that crazy fight with Gina. What's her name?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I gotta something occurred to me today while I was listening to the Tokyo Drift podcast. How did we not include Eva Mendes in the list of top 5 hottest chicks in this series?
Good point. Good point. She was supposed to be in this movie.
I know. So disappointing.
Also, cool little fact about Michelle Rodriguez. Michelle Rodriguez thought out of the films, and then she went to see Fast Five, and saw the scene in the credits, and was like, "Oh fuck, I'm back in." She didn't know until she saw the movie and saw
really?
the post credit scene from Fast Five.
She was like, "Well, that."
And she said that I listened to an interview. Really stoked about it.
Yeah, naturally. She's like, well, now I've got them by the balls. They've already committed to the audience that I'm back in. Mm-hmm. And so I better get paid.
Although Eva Mendes clearly could not leverage that for herself.
I think it was scheduling things with her, and which is a shame because I would really like to see her come back.
Yeah.
And that would be a fun, romance. Oh, I guess Brian is gone from the series because of reasons. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
But
he already had somebody he already had a romantic interest.
But no. Yeah, he had Mia, but there was a romantic thing between him and Eva Mendes in the second one, and so to see those two collide would be cool.
Fair enough.
Like Brian's ex-girlfriend hunting down Jordana Brewster, Brian's wife.
Yeah.
I'm make that Fast and Furious 9. I'll go see it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I will just say though that it's that the fact that Michelle Rodriguez learned did all that fighting with Gina Carano, who's a professional fighter, and they actually really worked really as badass as they did. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, we can continue to watch Michelle Rodriguez movies.
She does her own stunts. Confirmed.
Fair enough.
Plus, this is a podcast about bad movies. So if we say that we're not going to watch Michelle Rodriguez movies, I mean, her entire filmography is bad. So that's a lot of wasted opportunity.
Yeah, that's
very
for sure.
fair.
So I'm just gonna do a little bit of a notebook dump here,
All right.
and I forgot that Gal Gadot was in fourth movie.
I did
honestly. Then I also noted that the gang getting back together, and The Rock is really fucking jacked. Oh well, I guess it was really Fast 5 when The Rock just seemed like he entered another level of his jackedness.
Of just gigantic.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like 80s action star level gigantic.
Yeah. And seeing him, except I think that Fast and Furious 6 is when he hit that level, because in Fast 5 when he and Vin Diesel fought, it was Clash of the Titans. But then in Fast and Furious 6, seeing the final fight with Vin and Dom, or with Vin and Rock versus Luke Evans and the Klaus guy, it's Yeah, there is clearly large and extra large on both sides of these fights. Of this fight.
Well, but they deliberately did that on purpose with Fast 5. They wanted, like, Vin Diesel didn't want to look small. Like, because when you're talking about The Rock and Vin Diesel, you're talking about people who have there's some ego between the two of those.
They don't get along.
Gentlemen. To the point where they had to make the fight in. I don't know that they don't. I think they do get along, but there's some serious ego between the two of them, and so like I mean they to the point where they had to make it so that there was not real. I mean like yeah, Dom kind of wins the fight, but like the fight between them is pretty even.
Yeah,
and then in real life though, Vin Diesel is all tiny compared to The Rock, and so they were clearly using fucking. In the Fast 5,
movie
they were
magic,
using camera magic to make them look close to the same size.
Yeah,
they didn't even bother in this one though. Like
exactly.
One of my first notes is Vin looks so small next to The Rock, it's laughable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is sad for Vin because he's such a badass. And then and I'll admit. I was hating on Vin Diesel early on in this movie, which I have never done before because I've been a Vin Diesel fan pretty much my whole life. Since I first saw him in a movie, I've thought he's a total badass. I don't know what possessed me to make fun of him in this movie. Maybe it's that I just didn't like this movie, but I was making fun of him, and Jillian was like, "Hey, don't make fun of Vin." And I was like,
he says certain words really weird. Like he says father really weird. And
my father.
Or he says and then there I made a note about something else that he said but I am not seeing where it was, but yeah, there's just certain things. Well, and then like certain times when he laughed, yeah, he's kind of a weird guy. Telling the Dom that she's okay with Brian going with Dom to go try and stop Shaw. That's really cheesy. Just the whole scene's really cheesy.
Okay, I like that scene. I legitimately thought I'm really not sure if all of the dialogue in this whole series is just terrible, because she's like, "I'll feel better knowing you're both out there watching each other's backs," and I'm like, this is just fucking dumb. Like, is Jordana Brewster just a bad actress?
I don't know that they gave her very much to work with. And then, like, later she was doing those phone scenes, and
oh yeah, God,
I kind of wonder if she like literally was just like yelling into a phone by herself, like, without somebody like talking to her on the other end. Because I've heard that like there are actors and actresses who don't like, because it's not like you're actually having that phone conversation when you're filming that scene. And so like I know it's not, it seems like it would be obvious, but apparently some people don't have somebody saying the other person's lines to them through the phone. And I kind of wonder if she's one of those people, because it seems like it would just make it so much easier if you have the other person saying their lines. But it's like, because her reaction to what Brian says just doesn't seem like it fits.
Yeah. So on the phone, it's like, I don't know why you would ever not do that. I'm with you, Ben. Like, why would you to have someone to react to and to like act opposite of, I think would make acting so much easier. And that's me saying that I've never acted. I've never had any, like, I don't have any experience. I don't have any education. I don't have any training, but I think that that's kind of a no-brainer, is like, it's easier to react to people. And so why would you never not do that? Totally.
Another note I had is that Luke Evans, the guy who played Owen Shaw, is the poor man's Orlando Bloom.
Oh, whoa. I was trying to figure out where I recognized that face. Now it's like, oh yeah, no.
Yeah, he's the poor man's Orlando Bloom. The scene where Tej and Hobbs undress the British guy is weird as fuck.
Yeah, why do you keep giving us like unnecessary weird nudity in movies? It's getting really uncomfortable, Ben.
Well, fortunately, there wasn't actual nudity there, but that was like, why the fuck do they make him take off all of his clothes? That's
to
just
embarrass
weird.
him.
that was just a weird scene.
I liked it.
I didn't really get why that scene was included. I also wrote that the Rock is a madman for jumping to the other car, and that's why Hobbs and Shaw will work. But then later, that was outdone by Dom jumping from one moving car across the bridge to a non-moving car, catching someone out of the air.
That was
as cool as that was. The CG
so
in that was so bad.
As cool as it was so dumb. Like,
yeah, that was bizarre. That was definitely bizarre. I do think that that Ludacris and Tyrese Gibson probably have the best chemistry of any two actors in the movie.
Yeah, they play off each other really well.
Yeah, they are they're probably one of the funniest parts, and I thought that they really work well, and that I kind of wish that we could see a movie where they were just I don't know, not even necessarily. Maybe it was just a spinoff with just them, or I don't know.
Yeah, a Roman and whatever Ludacris's character's name is.
Yeah, Tej. I forgot.
Roman and Tej.
I kept forgetting Tyrese's character's name was Roman, but yeah, Roman and Tej.
Oh, that would be a good movie.
Cool.
And those two, they play off each other really well, and they're really funny. And Tyrese Gibson is really funny.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that you don't expect it. A lot like Batista, like Dave Batista. You do not expect it, but Drax.
Well, and
is
that's
hilarious.
Batista does. He plays because I feel like Batista does it differently because Batista does it almost as the straight man, whereas Ludacris is almost more the straight man of those two because Tyrese is definitely not a straight man, he's clearly making jokes, and
Yeah.
I mean Tej is definitely burn half of his jokes are just burning Roman.
But Roman is so Tyrese is very almost slapstick funny. Like the scene where he accidentally fires the harpoon and it goes in the wall, and he just they look over and he just really just shoves the harpoon gun into Tej's hands, and it's that's the way he plays that. He's just hilarious.
Yeah. I also thought that it was hilarious that Roman has Hobbs in his phone as Samoan Thor.
Oh, I did not notice that.
Off at that.
That
really
was
funny. Great.
Yeah. That it's didn't. He says didn't. Dom says didn't really weird.
Didn't.
I can't think of how he says it, but I made a note that he says didn't really weird.
Man.
I also thought that it seemed dangerous that Han and Giselle weren't wearing helmets on their motorcycles.
Well, I mean, this is a family that loves to flirt with danger.
That I guess that's true.
Yeah,
Also,
and one of them pays the price for it.
Well, so why the fuck is Giselle just in that sniper scene? Why is she just running out there and just posting up with a sniper right there? It's stay behind something, lady.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. And then the last one, last two actually, hilarious in the scene at the end where you can tell that Dom totally wanted to try and hold down both Elena and Letty.
Oh man,
it's I live a different life than you. I can't.
Yeah, that seemed really I don't know. That's almost shitty for him to do because she's she was cool and they were setting up all right, this is the new love interest, and then they're like, no, we're bringing Letty back.
Well, but Dom clearly would have been down for both, but Elena wasn't.
I mean, Elena was hot. If you're choosing between her and Letty, oh, you go Elena.
Oh, I'm with you there 100%.
I mean, yeah, actually, you're right. I probably do too. But if I have to choose, if gun to my head, I have to choose between the two of them, I'm going Elena.
But I'm not gonna not try and get both.
Exactly.
Can't blame our boy Dom.
Then my last note that I want to bring up is I thought the last line of the movie is hilarious. That And most of all, thanks for fast cars.
Oh my god.
Delivered by Roman. And then it goes into electronic music that do 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 do.
Yeah, God, that was so stupid. But I did like that they went back to the house in LA. But,
yeah. Oh, and like when they when Hobbs asks him what he wants, and he says like 1327, and that's I'm pretty sure that's what I bizarrely remember that's what
the address is.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you want, like $1,327? Because I can write you a personal check for that.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, that's it? That's all he's taking?
Yeah. No, but I did like that they went back to that house. It was a nice, like, homage, or not even an homage. It was just a nice fan service to the first movie, which I love the first movie.
The garden's all overgrown as though nobody's lived there for several years.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure it was like fucking whatever it's called, condemned by the city. But I don't know. I think that it's funny that they went back there, and I'm thinking like, are there like 9 full-grown adults living in this house together?
Mm-hmm. And a baby.
And a baby. They're raising a baby in there.
9 adults and a baby.
That
bed.
Sounds like a Tom Selleck movie.
All right. Well, let's move on to our questions. So each film we go through, we'll revisit these 6 questions to lead our discussion. And the first question is, how bad was it?
It was pretty freaking bad.
I wrote that, like last week, I claimed that Tokyo Drift was easily the worst of the 8-film, soon-to-be 9-film franchise. And now I think I'm going to have to just adjust that. And because this movie is worse than Tokyo Drift.
I'm 100% with you.
I did not think so at all. I thought
you absolutely hated Tokyo Drift.
I
so
don't like Tokyo Drift, but I thought this was way better than Tokyo Drift. Because, like, at least the characters in this movie are really likable. Like, the only likable character in Tokyo Drift is Han. Whereas in this one, Han is competing with, like, I really like Brian. I really like Dom. I really like Hobbs. I don't like Shaw at all.
You don't like any of the characters for anything they do in this film. You like them from previous films.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Not Han. No, yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. I felt like there was a lot going on in this movie.
I literally wrote that this. So the plot of this one seems to be too far-fetched. They definitely jumped the shark. It still has very entertaining parts and set pieces. It just started to become too hard to follow the plot because it's like, so who the fuck is Shaw? And why the fuck is he doing what he's doing? And why, honestly, I was like, as I was writing my plot synopsis, I was like, who the fuck really was Shaw? Like, yeah, he's just like introduced to us as like some bad guy that Hobbs has to take down. And it's like, what? And then the fact that the MacGuffin is just described as fucking the component.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I
mean, I guess early on they did call it the Nightshade device, but still, then after, like literally after one time of calling it the Nightshade device, they just started referring to it as the component. And literally, we're just like, okay, so everything is happening because they're looking for the component.
I mean, it was very much a MacGuffin movie, and that's like they shamelessly do that though. Like they know that this isn't high cinema. They know that this isn't high art.
I mean, five you could. I mean, yes, money is kind of the MacGuffin, but then there's the cool parts where they hit the little stash house and burn all of the money that they take, so that then they get him to like consolidate all of his money, so that then they can have the big heist.
5 was awesome. 5 is the best.
Like,
one.
So I guess we're in reality really the safe is almost the MacGuffin in 5, and I just think that they just had a way better MacGuffin. And it's like, yes, they're shameless MacGuffin movies, but the fact that they don't even have a good MacGuffin.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, is the safe even a MacGuffin in 5? Because it's like, that is the ultimate goal. Whereas I think, and I don't want to like get into an argument about semantics or anything, but like of the definition of a word, but it's like, or a storytelling device. But like, in my opinion, a MacGuffin is something that is like almost made up. Like this thing is just borderline, like it's just fictional. Whereas money is a pure, like this is the motivation. We want to get rich.
I mean, so my understanding is that a MacGuffin is literally just a device to drive the plot.
Okay.
And
Then by
so-
that one, then by that, yeah, the safe.
Yeah,
But
because they're trying to steal the safe, and that's what drives the plot.
yeah.
But we don't need to get into semantics too much. But yeah, I just really like, and so yeah, we're clearly into the second question and of what made it bad, and it's the plot. And then like I also said that the movie was kind of bland overall compared to like 5. Like, and one of the things that I thought that really highlighted that is so like you can barely tell that they're in London for the first half, and like they didn't take advantage of the location at all, which I felt like they did a really good job of doing that in 5. Of making you really, even though they weren't actually in Brazil for a lot of it, and they did the same thing with Tokyo Drift. Even though they weren't in Tokyo for a lot of it, they actually shot a lot of this movie in England, and it barely felt like they were in England. They could have honestly been in LA, and I would not have thought. I would have been like, oh, okay. Like if you told me that the first half took place in LA, I'd be like, sure.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say the setting kind of made it bad because like the first half takes place in London, the rest of the movie takes place across other places in Europe.
Spain.
It's
Spain.
And it's like it just felt so faceless. Almost like it didn't have an identity. It was just a blank canvas of roads and like very vaguely general environments and generic environments. And so you're right. It didn't feel at all like London or Europe. It just felt
bland.
Yeah. And whereas Rio is so alive in Fast 5 and like,
so is Tokyo
and Tokyo is in Tokyo Drift. I even commented last week about like the microcosm of Tokyo, like Japanese life. And that's something that was clearly, they paid a lot of attention to, and they did not do that in this movie. And I guess when I was watching the movie, I felt like a Fast and Furious movie doesn't fit in Europe, but maybe they just didn't do a good job with it.
I think that they just didn't do a great job of it.
No, they really didn't. I mean, like you said, like I really thought, like in the beginning of the movie, I thought they were like in LA or something. Very similar to like on the California coast. Like I haven't seen any of them past Tokyo Drift until this point. So like I haven't seen 4, I haven't seen 5, or any of the rest of them.
Watch Fast 5.
You can use my movies. You can use my both
I'll
of those.
I'll
'cause
probably
those two are worth
probably
watching.
watch them at some point.
Yeah,
But,
Fast and
4 and 5 are
Furious
definitely worth a
and
watch.
Fast 5, awesome.
But yeah, like I'd only seen the first 3 up until this point. So like I had no idea what was going on. I was just like, oh, so they're just in California somewhere as usual. Then it was like, oh, no, they're not. Oh, they're actually fugitives now. I was kind of lost for the first half of this movie, which I mean, I
was too, and I've seen it multiple times.
And I mean, I kind of get where they're coming from. They're going on the assumption that you've seen the other movies, but they don't really explain enough to those who haven't.
Well,
but that's the thing about it is that it's just so vague. Like the whole Shaw thing is just so vague. And the fact that like what's his first name? Does he have a first name? And then like later his brother is introduced, and his brother is also just Shaw.
So they do have first names. Where I think the story really like got over complicated, like unnecessarily complicated, was with the whole Braga connection. And it's like,
well, yeah, and then because then Dom literally just when Brian gets back, Dom hand waves all of that away by just saying, "Whatever you found there was for you."
Yeah, and
all that matters is.
Holy shit! Do we have Vin Diesel on our podcast? But he hand waves it away, and it's like, then why the fuck did you do this subplot just to make Brian look like a badass? Like this was
also so that Brian could go break
Stasiak's
nose again.
Yeah, I did like them bringing back old characters like Braga and Stasiak, even if they were in minor roles.
The actor who plays Braga kind of reminds me of Fred Armisen, and it just makes me wish that Fred Armisen had played Braga.
That would have been too funny. Oh man, Fred Armisen being a bad guy in Fast and Furious.
He'd be a solid bad guy.
Some series should do that, where they just cast funny, like really comedic actors as the villains, and ask the audience to take them really seriously.
That would be funny.
Now
it's funny because now, like, especially if you know John Lithgow now, like, you think of him as a fairly funny actor, but like in the 80s, he was cast as villains primarily.
Oh, really? I love John Lithgow.
Yeah, what's that one? Like, he's in some movie with Stallone where it's like something about mountain climbing or something like that. I'm blanking on the name, but he's a bad guy in that.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
What is that movie called? Fuck. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, all right. Well,
now I'm surprised neither of you mentioned one specific scene that made me cringe quite a bit, and it was the scene where Shaw shows up after the street race, and they're just talking.
What?
Like in the middle of that parking lot.
Oh, when he's talking,
and they have the snipers on each other.
Yeah, why is Hobbs standing up in that scene? Fucking lay down, guy. You're gonna steady your gun.
Also, that scene gave me a very bad, Goblin talking to Spidey on the roof vibe, except it wasn't laughable or, even integral.
Yeah, it was stupid.
There was a lot of that in this movie, I feel.
I mean, I think that they were trying... it was dumb, but I guess what they were trying to do is establish the whole... you don't find Shaw unless he wants you to.
The only way you get close to Shaw is if he wants you to. Cliffhanger was what the movie was called.
Cliffhanger. Yep, there we go.
So, yeah, it just felt... But I guess I felt like you only get close to Shaw if he wants you to. But also, we were super prepared for this, and Hobbs has a sniper on him right now. And it's like, pull the fucking trigger, guy.
Well, Dom didn't even know. Yeah, so that was one note that I was like, I literally have that was, why not just shoot Shaw when Hobbs has the sniper on him? And I mean, I guess because Dom would have gotten shot, but why does Hobbs care?
Yeah, exactly. He could have just gotten his job done and called it good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that granted, we're supposed to realize that Hobbs is starting to want to be part of the family. I think that's the other thing that scene does is it establishes that they already know that we know that Hobbs has an older brother, and that's going to be Jason Statham.
Shaw, you mean?
Or yeah, excuse me, sorry.
I was like, wait, The Rock has an older brother?
No, sorry. Shaw has an older brother, and it's going to be Statham. Yeah, that was not a good scene though at all.
No, so good point, Tim. That was arguably the worst scene of the whole movie.
All right, so which character was the worst?
I'm gonna go on a limb here and actually say Han this week.
Whoa.
And he was utterly pointless. They could have written his character out of the movie and it really wouldn't have mattered. I mean, yes, they had the whole subplot of him, and I'm forgetting her fucking name. Giselle. And then she just goes and dies at the end, which gives him the reason to go to Tokyo because that's what they're going to do. That whole point, yeah, that makes sense. But everything else that he does in the movie doesn't matter. He gets the shit beat out of him in the subway. He's driving in a cars for maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, and you rarely see him throughout the film. He didn't need to be there.
He's a very inconsequential character, and I think he was there because he was not in Fast and Furious, which was the 4th one, but then after they retconned it so that Tokyo Drift took place way after, once they had firmly decided, okay, we're making a few movies from before that take place before Tokyo Drift. As soon as that happened, they were like, oh, great, we can pull in this fan favorite character and make a connection to Tokyo Drift. so that it's not just this
because
black
we've already
sheep.
established that Dom knows Han.
Right. And so that it's not this black sheep. And I think that that's really the sole reason he was in the movie, was because he played a part in Fast Five. Like he played a part that was meaningful. And Tim, you're right.
Yeah. No, actually it was just 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Tim, you're right that his presence in this movie was completely inconsequential. But I think that the presence was to close out his arc and to like send him on his way to Tokyo, where he dies.
Yeah, I completely get that, but like I said,
wait, Tim, did you stick around for the post credits scene?
I did not. I immediately shut it off after the credits because I was just so done with the movie. 30 minutes into this film, one of my notes was, I can't believe this isn't over yet.
Okay, so Tim,
so in the post credits scene, we get to see the scene where Han is trying to get away from DK. After they have to escape the garage, and then you see it cuts to the Mercedes Benz and Jason Statham in it, and he gets a radio thing saying that there's people racing, and then it cuts back to them racing, and then it cuts to Han crashing, and it's all the shots from Tokyo Drift, and then you see that Mercedes that T-bones it, and then a guy backs out after he T-bones it, and he gets out of the car, and it's Statham, and he calls Dom and starts talking shit.
And he says, Dominic Toretto, you don't know me, but you're... And then, like, the car blows up, and he says, but you're about to, and hangs up. Mm-hmm. It's actually pretty badass.
Well, I guess I missed that. Oh, well.
Yeah, and so that sets up Fast 7, or Furious 7, which is where he's the bad guy. But then at the end of it, after he kills a couple of their friends, he has dinner with everybody,
and they all call it good.
The family, yeah, they're all friends again. Even though he killed some of their family, he gets invited into the family.
That sounds really dumb.
Yeah. But Statham has star power.
I went with Jordana Brewster / Mia because she literally seemed like a brick wall.
Yeah, she was pretty bad in this movie.
And they probably could have just replaced her with a brick wall.
Just a motherly brick wall.
Just like as attractive.
Just like have like a couple bricks that stick out that like you could set a baby on top of.
Yeah.
And then have somebody point guns at and Brian be like, brick wall, no!
That would be really funny. It almost like a Adult Swim sketch where the brick wall like just shuffles off, running away from the bad guys. So I'm gonna say Shaw was the worst character because he was just.
Why was what was
who
he?
Was he?
What the fuck was Shaw? Yeah, no, that's a good point.
He just came out of nowhere, and he was suddenly just the most badass criminal on the planet. And it's like, how did we never hear about him before? Why was
he was teaching Braga to be global instead of local?
Why was Hobbs chasing after Toretto when he could be chasing after Shaw?
Yeah, I don't know. Definitely confusing. I also had a note about how Shaw's gang was also, they were basically just there.
Yeah.
They didn't really serve any purpose.
Klaus was the only one that served any purpose. And the chick, the blonde chick, was like...
Oh, and I guess the dude who you were supposed to think was Dom in the first scene with Hobbs.
Oh, yeah. But the blonde chick was like... I can tell that she's supposed to be like that. She was supposed to be like a counterpart to someone in the regular gang, but they never really explained or never really like established anything about that.
I mean, they made a joke about it supposed to be like supposedly being Brian, but like they didn't really go any farther than that.
Yeah, exactly. And and she did have a face off with Brian, and like that's how they, and that is eventually how she was taken out, was Brian. But like That would have been a much cooler rivalry if she was Brian's equal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but I guess they probably didn't want to, I don't know. They didn't want to do the whole, like, just, like, make everybody fight their doppelganger thing, but they did do some of that, so I don't know. I'm going to concede to Pat and go with that I do think it was Shaw.
You can't see me, but I'm fist pumping right now.
Yeah,
fair.
I can definitely agree with that.
Because it just, like, what the fuck? Based on how hard it was for me to write the plot synopsis because of what Shaw, like, I was just like, what the fuck is Shaw? Like, how do I describe him in this plot synopsis?
Who is he?
I don't know.
How did he come up so
Some guy
quickly?
who fucking Hobbs can't capture, I guess.
Yeah, he's a guy who Hobbs is after.
All right, so then best character?
No one.
Oh, that's not true.
Stasiak?
Oh, Stasiak. That's going to be a tough one to fight. He was a good guy.
I mean, he literally has no reason to help Brian, but he does anyways. And then when he goes and, like, literally puts his probably job and freedom on the line, because my guess is if you get caught helping a fucking fugitive as a federal agent, you'd probably get arrested. And he literally risks his job and, like, a lot of shit. And Brian's just a dick and breaks his nose again.
Yeah, and oh man, I'm gonna agree with you on Stasiak. There's a lot of characters in this movie. I would say this movie is crowded, like overcrowded.
Yeah, the good thing that there's that scene where Paul Walker's like, has anybody heard from the two Mexican guys who are in 4 and 5? And
they're just like,
nobody,
nah.
like, yeah. Which I was kind of bummed that they weren't in this one, because I do love them. They're fucking hilarious.
But Tej and Roman kind of filled that spot.
Yeah, no, total. Well, and, like, I mean, the movie would have been even more crowded if they'd had them.
Yeah, and so I mean, there were a lot of
played by Don Omar.
There were a lot of characters. And there were a lot of characters that were very likable. I think Han is still very likable. I really like Dom. I like Brian. I like Giselle a lot in this movie. She was really cool. But man, Stasiak, what a good guy. Mm-hmm. Just a nice guy doing his job.
Mm-hmm. And
except not doing his job.
Not doing his job well.
Risking his fucking shit.
Yeah. For the greater good.
Yeah, that's fucking... And just getting his nose broken for being a good guy.
Tim, are you going to make an argument for anyone else?
I can't make an argument. I didn't like any of the characters in this movie. This is probably my least favorite out of all the ones in this series, and honestly, all the characters were just bland, and I didn't feel a connection with any of them, so I can't make any arguments.
All right.
Fair enough. So then we just did best character. So now we're on to, was it so bad it was good? I don't think so.
No, it was just bad. This is one of those movies, like, I know we say every week that we base it on, are we going to go back and watch it again? Never again. You couldn't pay me enough to watch this again.
I mean, if somebody wanted to watch this movie, I would probably watch it with them. But it's not good.
No.
It was, like, really hard. I literally broke it up I watched it across, like, 3 different times, because, like, one time I was watching it and then somebody hit me up and was like, hey, do you want to play 2K? And I was like,
yeah, I would way rather do that than this right now.
And then, like, I literally broke it up. And so, like, yeah, it's not good.
This is the first time that I've seen it since you and I watched it in theaters, Ben. And Tim, I'm kind of with you. I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again. So, gotta say no. This movie was just bad.
I think I'll watch it again if I ever have kids and I'm trying to introduce them to the franchise. I'd watch it with my kids.
Yeah, like, hey, we're gonna watch the Fast and the Furious movies, and you're gonna really not like the sixth one, but you're gonna watch it anyway.
Exactly. That's like there's bad James Bond movies, but
yeah, but even bad James Bond movies, I'll still go back to. I think that James Bond is either good or it's actually no. I'm not going to say that because I don't like Skyfall.
Yeah, fair enough. And we already basically established this one last week, but we can say it again. Would it have been better as a Netflix/HBO series? I don't think so. We've got enough Fast franchise in our lives already.
Yeah,
too much.
All right, so let's move on to burning questions.
Oh, I've got a good one.
All right, you can start us off then.
How fast can tanks drive?
About depending.
Pretty fast.
Pretty fucking fast, right? And
60 miles an hour ish.
I think faster than that. And how if what we're led to believe is true. And how fast can Hobbs's truck drive?
That also is a very good question.
It seems like every
I've got one that'll relate to that one later.
Okay.
Definite. My first one is there such thing as a nightshade device?
Maybe.
Is that a real thing?
Gotta find out.
Is it Shaw? Are Shaw and the nightshade device the same thing?
No, because it's in that case.
Hey, he's trying to steal it.
Is Shaw in the case?
No.
Oh my God, he's in the case.
What's in the box?
So then another one. How much older than Letty is Dom? Because clearly he's older.
Yeah.
But I guess there's that scene where he's like, he says she has a car and he was like 17.
In the first movie, I think they established that he's just like a few years older than she is.
Okay. Fair enough. Then another one we already talked about is why not just shoot Shaw when Hobbs has the sniper on him?
Should.
It really just should.
Just let Dom die. I mean, he already survived getting shot a couple days ago, so he can clearly do it.
Wait,
yeah,
what?
well, and he really he did like that one. He just like shrugged that one off. It was nothing.
Yeah.
And then I said we're supposed to believe that the dude whose nose Brian broke multiple times is going to risk his career by capturing Brian, then letting him go. And that's just like.
I mean, maybe there's some sort of camaraderie. Maybe they're friends. Maybe they're like more frenemies, and they both have like a mutual respect for each other and how they do their jobs. And maybe they're both like, yeah, I don't like this guy like you, and I don't like mesh, but dude's good at his job, so
yeah,
I respect him.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Why was the SS Camaro not shown in any other scenes than it being parked?
That is a good question.
Wait,
because that's probably the best car in the entire movie.
The one with the giant spoiler?
No, the orange one.
Oh, yeah. And Han even says, I like the color.
Yeah.
And then
they
he
never
paints
use
the
it.
RX-7 that color.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They never use that car, and it's disappointing because it's probably my favorite out of all the old ones that they got.
So then my next one is, this is the one that actually relates to yours about how fast Hobbs' truck is. How did they get the cars to Spain from London? And damn, Hobbs drove that truck fast from London to Spain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe like Hobbs has a lot of resources at his disposal. Maybe he just put the truck in a plane and flew away.
But what about the
same
car?
plane
that had all their? Because Hobbs clearly tells them that he'll meet them at the base. So how did they get all of the cars to the base?
Don't they put them on that like giant cargo plane that they try to get away in at the end? That's what I would assume.
But wait, I'm talking about how does Dom and like the crew get all of their cars to Spain?
The channel.
I was gonna say, aren't they on a plane as well?
They take Shaw's plane?
I don't.
No,
think
there's like a
so.
different plane. I could have sworn that they mentioned something about flying them over.
I don't know about that. I didn't catch that. But they also like they catch him, like they get there pretty quick and they catch him before they like the whole highway chase scene with the tank. I feel like that's like along, like on the road on their way to Spain. But I could be wrong.
No, because remember they find they catch the guy trying to break the things, and then Dom's like, "Oh, they're not find out where the fucking convoy's going because they're gonna hit the convoy."
Oh yeah, you're right.
But why doesn't Ron Stain get ripped under the tank like right away?
Because it's a super convenient tank. That was a sick Mustang, though.
It was.
But not as sick as the Skyline that he jumps to.
Yeah, that's true.
That car is so badass.
So then my next one is, this is the second to last, and is Riley's death maybe the most brutal death in the entire series?
Riley's?
Riley is the character played by Gina.
She's the woman that gets harpooned.
Yeah, she takes the harpoon to the fucking stomach and gets thrown out of a plane.
Yikes! Yeah, I think
of
so.
that.
That's pretty.
Like
gnarly.
I could not think of anybody who dies more brutally than that.
That is pretty gnarly. Probably, yeah. That's pretty harsh.
Like anybody good or bad. I guess maybe Morimoto, because he just dies in that head-on collision.
And I mean, maybe
nobody even remembers about that he existed.
Yeah, Morimoto
just kind of quickly forgets him. Even DK, who's his like best friend.
But maybe DK, because he gets in a terrible car accident and everyone is celebrating.
No, remember, because Tim says he survived. Tim said he survived. You see him getting out of the car, and
okay, you definitely do.
I didn't remember that, but
so my burning question is, how does Dom not shatter all of Letty's ribs as he collides with her in midair and completely changes her trajectory?
And then lands on top of her on a car?
No, she lands on top of him. He somehow turns them and lands. He hits the windshield first, which actually
Dom
makes
has a lot of body control in the air.
Yes, he does.
I can say
actually kind of makes sense though, because that like, I mean, of course he's gonna be hurt, but like as long as we're dealing with the like some level of suspension of disbelief, the fact that a windshield is tempered and it would, I mean, to an extent, it would cushion the fall for him. But like,
yeah, I suppose
he completely changes her trajectory in midair as she's moving 80 plus miles an hour, and just slams into her.
Yeah, definitely. So then my last one is, how long was Han in Tokyo before he got killed?
We don't know, because when did this movie come out? Like 2012?
This movie came out in 2013.
Okay, 2013. So, and then Tokyo Drift was supposed to have taken place in 2013 after they retconned it, so maybe Han wasn't there for very long, but he seemed pretty established.
Yeah, that's what I'm...
But he also had a lot of money from like that previous heist, so he probably could have.
They had heisted $100 million in Fast 5.
That's true. But he also seemed to have some friends.
So let's just say 6 months-ish.
6 months. You're welcome, writers of the Fast and the Furious universe. We're helping you out with your lore.
Yep, exactly. All right, well, that wraps up burning questions. So let's move on to forgettable bullshit we found on Wikipedia and sometimes IMDb.
Oh, wait, real quick. I forgot
about this segment.
Before we get there, I have a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Roman Reigns. We all hate that he wears the vest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why does he get to wear armor in a wrestling match? That doesn't make sense. It's all because of these fucking movies. Because Vince McMahon saw The Rock wearing the vest as Hobbs, and he thought, that looks great. Let's put Roman in a vest. And he put Roman in a vest, and we hate it, but Vince thinks it looks good because people liked Hobbs in Fast 5 and Fast and Furious 6. That's my conspiracy theory.
All right.
It all makes sense now. The world is complete.
We have The Rock and Hobbs and the Fast and the Furious costume designers to blame for Roman wearing a vest.
Fair enough. Now on to forgettable bullshit we found on Wikipedia and sometimes IMDb. All right, so for box office, the budget on this movie was $160 million.
Holy shit.
Opening weekend in the USA, it did $97.4 million, so that's pretty...
Yeah, it did pretty solid.
That's pretty significant.
They made more than Tokyo Drift's entire budget in the opening weekend.
Yeah, and then the gross in the USA was $238.7 million, so successful, and then the cumulative worldwide gross was $788.7 million, so it was a fucking...
bomb. Like this thing was a smash hit.
Grabbed the cash, and that's why we're gonna see. There are currently 3 more in development.
So we should be heisting the studio, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it's so I've talked about this in the last, talked about this last week, but in April 2011, it was confirmed that Chris Morgan had already begun work on a script for a potential 6th film at the behest of Universal Studios, and it was also confirmed that Universal intended to transform the series from street racing action into a series of heist films with car chases in the vein of The Italian Job and The French Connection, with Fast 5 being the transitional movie. And so the Fogelson had said that the racing aspect had put a ceiling on the number of people willing to see the films in the series, and that by turning it into a series where car driving ability was just one aspect, he hoped they could increase the audience. And I think as the box office numbers for this film show, that they successfully did that.
Yeah, they were looking at how to make more money, and I think for the sake of the quality of the movies, maybe they should have stuck in the transition phase where they made Fast 5. But for the money, poof. It's hard to argue with this.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue with almost $800,000.
Yeah. You don't mean million.
$800 million.
$800 million.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue with either, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd take 800,000 personally, so.
Yeah. So the film was shot on location in London, Glasgow, Liverpool, and Spain. Originally, they wanted to shoot in France, but the Canary Islands and Spain were willing to give them a better tax break, so they shot in Spain. I also found out that Paul Walker suffered an ACL injury during filming, and production had to shift to work around his recovery from that. I kind of wondered if that's maybe where the Braga, when they decided to have the Braga thing, because then they were like, well, Paul can just go do this Braga shit while everybody else is doing all this other stuff.
Here's something he can do.
And then we'll have Dom handwave it later. And
the audience will love it.
And then Paul Walker didn't have to do any crazy scenes that required him to have a good ACL.
Yeah. They're like, we'll call up that actor that played Braga. We'll call up the actor that played Stasiak. We'll pay them each $1,000, and we'll bring them in for a day.
Shit, they probably paid him $100,000.
Yeah, they got way more than $1,000 for that.
Yeah,
I mean, $1,000 is all they would have to pay me.
Yeah, but you're not them. You're not established.
$100. I'll play Braga.
I don't think you would have done a very good job.
No, I would have done a great job.
Shaw's the guy who convinced you to stop thinking locally and start thinking globally.
That's right. You got to think. You got to dress for the job you got. No, dress for the job you want, not the job you got.
Yeah. So our podcasts are going to be offered in German from now on.
Well, No.
If you're gonna start translating, Tim.
Yeah.
I wish. I wish.
All right, so the next piece I found was that for Owen Shaw's flip car, Lynn tasked the film's vehicle designer with developing a car capable of driving headfirst into moving vehicles and flipping them into the air. McCarthy and his team designed a fully functional, low-to-the-ground Formula racing car with a ramp on its front that allowed it to catapult other cars into the air while keeping the flip car driver safe. So that shit was not CGI. That was real.
That's insane. But but it still brings me back to they were literally F1 cars, and like Hobbs's truck was hanging in there.
Yeah. No, I know.
I mean, if you want to think about like all the weight of the steel that was on them, maybe slowing them down. But like,
yeah, and I guess to have the motor, the stuff to drive the hydraulic system that would be required to run the flipping panel thing would probably weigh it down quite a bit.
I still think
that's a real stretch.
Yeah.
It's a real stretch.
Yeah. So then the next one, a scene involving Evan's character commandeering a tank was originally intended to use CGI to portray the vehicle crushing cars along a Spanish highway. But the final scene decided to use practical effects as the tank really ran over approximately 250 cars during filming. The scene was shot over a 3-mile stretch of highway in Tenerife? It's somewhere in Spain, lined with holiday resorts that had to be digitally removed to create a desolate appearance. The segment's finale that sees Roman leap to a nearby car and the tank flip was created digitally, though.
All right. One thing that I thought was silly at the end of the movie was how they just so casually like jumped out of the plane like 20 or 30 feet above, and they're just like, jump to the Jeep, and they just do. I'm like, that would be terrifying. Like, there's not a chance in hell that I could ever do that.
Well, then, apparently, I also read like a big thing about Justin Lin had thought of the idea of a car driving out of a plane, out of the front of a plane, like during when they were making Fast and Furious. But they didn't have the CGI that they had at the time didn't make it, or they couldn't, it
didn't look right.
Didn't look very good. And so they didn't use that then, and they thought about trying to do it in 5 as well. But again, they didn't have the CGI didn't look very good. And so finally he got to do it in 6.
Nice.
I also wrote this is another notebook dump, but I wrote, Dom has survived some shit. And then I wrote, you knew he was walking out of those flames when everybody's just staring into the flames. And then Dom finally walks out. You knew he was going to walk out of those.
Still badass, though.
Yeah, totally. So then the last thing that I have is that there was a cooperative racing video game titled Fast and Furious Showdown, and it was released on May 21st, 2013. It was developed by Firebrand Games and published by Activision for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, Wii U, Xbox 360, and Nintendo 3DS. The game's story ties into the events in Fast and Furious 6, including bridging the events between the story of the film and those of its predecessor, Fast 5, as well as the story of other films in the franchise. It is a Grand Theft Auto-style action game and received mainly negative reviews.
Yeah, there have been a handful of Fast and Furious games, and they're all pretty poorly received.
Yeah.
Garbage.
Definitely. Well, that wraps up our discussion of Fast and Furious 6. But since we don't only watch bad movies and TV, let's talk about some of the stuff that we have genuinely enjoyed watching lately. Tim, we usually start with you, so I'm going to change it up and go to Pat first.
So I started True Detective last night, but you've talked about that quite a bit on this podcast, so I'm going to talk about something else. So this is going to sound weird, but I watched Christopher Robin recently, and it's on Netflix, and it's awesome. Like, it's so good. It's funny. It's wholesome. It's really like a really good story. It's a really good message. It's just this amazing movie, and it made me really rethink the value of the Winnie the Pooh property and how really great Winnie the Pooh is for all ages. And man, Christopher Robin, I just can't recommend that movie enough. It's excellent.
I've actually seen it, and I can confirm it's actually really good. Definitely worth a watch.
Really,
Nice.
really great.
I'll have to give it a watch sometime.
I love the.
Tim,
sorry. Tim, I love the part where he's like, they're on the train and Pooh is just like saying the things he sees, and he's like, tree, dog, man, and Christopher Robin is like, what are you doing? He's like, it's called say the things you see, dog. I don't know what that's called. it's just like this. It's just really wholesome, funny, fun.
Yeah.
Nice. Right on. Tim, what about yourself? What have you been watching?
So I've kind of been digging into, like, I guess, C movie territory.
Oh god, that's bad.
This past week, I've been going back and watching a few of my old favorites, such as The Legend of Neil, which, Patrick, I think you might actually enjoy. It's about this guy that gets sucked into the world of Legend of Zelda and has to beat the original one, like IRL.
What?
It's a pretty good series. And then I also watched The Gamers, Darkness Rising. Sort of a very similar concept, except with D&D.
All right.
Both pretty decent movies, at least for me. But again, they are like C movie budget, like only like a couple $1,000 budget movie territory.
Fair enough. Well, I'm just really fucking excited for Endgame, which I'm going to see tomorrow, which is the day that it opens. But this podcast is going to come out after it's already opened. So
you watched Endgame this week.
Yeah.
And you can't believe Batman showed up to kill Thanos and Luke Skywalker was there.
Well, and then the fact that they let Spider-Man fucking have that whole like dillying scene with the Hulk.
And the
double-ended dilly between Spider-Man and Hulk was fucking weird.
Superfluous nudity. Just over the top.
And it wasn't like good nudity, it was like uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable nudity. Almost as uncomfortable as Gamer.
Almost.
Probably on par though with Daybreakers.
Amazing though, of all of them, Scarlett Johansson did not get naked.
But it was weird how she did cure vampirism.
Vampirism is actually how they pronounced it in the movie.
Fair enough. Kind of like how anti-venom isn't a word, it's really anti-venin.
Oh yeah. Good call. Good call.
All right. Well, that wraps up no refunds for this week. Don't forget to check out our incredible website called northpro.com, where you can check out everything we do in one place.
What a great website.
Listen to us weekly on our other gaming podcast that's called Hard Reset. This week we talked about a lot about Dreams. Next time we'll be watching Roar Oltog's 2018 film Tomb Raider, starring fine-ass Alicia Vikander. And see you next time. Don't forget, no refunds.
And Furious, which was
but it's got a really good song called Tokyo Drift. So,
what you see me with? Go Tokyo. Yeah, no. But
that's
then
a
there
really
was
good song.
Then there was Fast and Furious, which was a good movie, the title was like, "Yep, we're going back to your roots." And then there was Fast 5, which made sense, and then there was I'm getting into it, but